even in the hours after that event, that full stop event, when the world comes crashing down, the darkness that envelops you, I was aware somewhere in the back of my mind of the tremendous beauty of nature around me. Dave, let's jump straight in with the essence of your book. Tell me about that story of how you ended up going from Malvern to the Pyrenees and kind of and ended up with this extraordinary story.
I was at a bit of a crossroads, so was feeling drawn to moving out to France already. I'd spent a lot of time during the summer holiday as a primary school teacher, exploring the country, fell in love with the place. So I was already looking to move out there. And if you want the God's honest truth, the weird story, I was actually back in my home area in Worcestershire, just out on a stroll out in the countryside. It was in late September, and I just suddenly had the instinct to look up and saw an osprey go over my head, which was quite rare, this is going back 10, 15 years. And this is the weird bit, I just felt like I had to kind of move south. So I followed the osprey, so to speak. So that was the kind of main inspiration to get over there, and then found a place after a lot of searching in the department of Ariège, which is beautifully green, amazing place down in the Pyrenees, on the edge of the Pyrenees and into the Pyrenees. Found a place to live, to buy, which didn't have a house. So I was advised by the people who sold us the place to become a farmer or to get some farm animals, which would make it much easier to convert one of the beautiful barns that was on the land. And I grew up on a family farm in Worcestershire, so it was a very easy step to come back to the cows. And the first three arrived, 3 Galloway heifers, shortly followed by 3 Castor heifers, which is the breed native to the Central Pyrenees, which is just, if anybody who's got any link with livestock rearing, particularly from a kind of not necessarily alternative, but even a kind of spiritual basis, these things are just off the scale. They are domesticated, but they don't give you their confidence lightly. You have to kind of earn your place in the herd. They're just incredible creatures. I'm kind of semi-obsessed with them. And the whole story has kind of unfolded from then, really. So it was a very unexpected journey that I've kind of experienced coming back to the cows, but in a very different way from when I was a kid. And
Dave, the big tragedy that hit your family, did that happen after you'd moved to France or before the move?
Yeah, so basically it's actually the 10-year anniversary very soon in the next few days. So I was already kind of installed, pretty happy with what was going on with the cows, with the farm, with the project already in Ariège, and had a particularly lovely day at a very kind of warm, really lovely autumnal day in south of France, and picked up the phone in the evening, Dad's voice, "Hi Dad, how you doing?" And then just suddenly, the whole world just collapsed. He just through his tears was able to tell me that their youngest son and my beloved younger brother Cork, his real name was Simon. He was always called Corky. That was his kind of nickname amongst everybody who knew him and loved him. Taken his own life, after several attempts. So it just brought as you actually know, Ben, through different circumstances, but just brought the biggest full stop you can ever imagine,
Yeah, I'm so sorry for your loss. And yeah, when it comes completely out of the blue, I was walking around the perimeter of a cricket field, and I saw my ex-wife's boyfriend Paul, who's really part of the family and plays in my cricket team, tearing around the boundary, ashen, with a phone in his hand. And I got the news that my daughter Iris had a serious accident, and I knew immediately when Kate, my ex, said down the phone, "She's not breathing, Ben." I knew. We didn't really know for another half an hour or an hour. But what struck me that I often talk about is even in the hours after that event, that full stop event, when the world comes crashing down, the darkness that envelops you, even in the hours and days immediately afterwards, I was aware somewhere in the back of my mind of the tremendous beauty of nature around me. And I remember questioning that, thinking, how can I possibly still find the shafts of light kind of beaming through the canopy above my head, and the warmness of the grass under my feet, and the flowers and the birds, and that kind of like benevolent, indifferent hum of nature all around me? How can I even notice these things now of all times? And I didn't just notice, it kind of held me in some way. And I think that's what we have in common, is in your book, you describe beautifully how you felt, and we'll talk about the cows in a minute, but you felt held by nature really in that time in your life.
Yeah, I totally echo everything you just said there. It's very, you said it after saying a very poetic way. It's a beautiful way to describe it. Just exactly the same experience, even actually in the very moment that I kind of received the phone call, got off the phone, put the phone down. Fortunately, we had Gabby, our first son, was I think he was only 4 or 5 months at that point. Fortunately, I had someone to cling to, some sense of innocence, actually, which is what I find in nature. So I find the same expression of innocence in nature that I do in very young kids like that, to be in their presence. And picked him up, just held him to me. But I also had this awareness of something vaster than the grief, which in daily life plays out, gets expressed in the form of nature. For me, there's just absolutely nothing like it on this planet. It's just the perfect system in so many ways, but particularly in terms of, the subject we're talking about today, in terms of being able to hold you so deeply when nothing else will work for you. There's just nothing like it.
Yeah, and I often sit on a train now or sit in a cafe and I wonder how many people in this carriage or sitting around me are hurting in some way, and they don't know that if they can just go outside for 15, 20 minutes, have a cup of tea in their hand and just listen to the bird song, or go for a little walk across the rough edges of the park if they're in the city or out in the countryside, and it will just lift them. Because it really does, in a way that it's very hard to articulate, but in those very, very dark moments, it was everything for me. And I just wanted to sort of insert myself into nature. I took to swimming like 4, 5, 6 times a day in a pond at the bottom of the valley, just a short walk down from where the house is in Somerset, and I would plunge into the water and curl into a ball under the water, and I really felt held. And then I would allow myself to bob back up and pop out of the surface of the water, and there's little dragonflies and things all around me, and it was just hugely important medicine for me, made me feel okay. And I wonder if that's because it somehow takes us outside of time, because a lot of the immediate aftermath of grief is a kind of begging for answers. Where the hell have they gone? Where's my daughter gone? What I've never paid much attention to religion before. I wish I'd concentrated more during theology class at school. Where do you go? What happens? What lives on? Because the idea that their experience is simply extinguished, and that is just completely impossible to accept. And so there's a lot of searching. And I think what I found is that the searching kind of ceased somewhat when I was in nature, because all 5 of your senses become occupied with kind of just appreciating the nature around you and looking at those kind of patterns overlaid on patterns and lots of little interactions between species and the smells and sounds and so on. And I think when those 5 senses are all occupied, maybe some kind of a 6th sense flickers momentarily, and we get a sense of being kind of outside of time in some way, as if perhaps that existence doesn't happen within time, that perhaps it's the other way around, that time is kind of like bubbles that happens within an existence that is timeless, and that's where they are, and it sort of helped me with that yearning for answers. Even if there were no answers that I can articulate, it gives you a sort of sense of peace, as some kind of like comfort in not knowing, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, for me, I don't really go down so much the scientific aspect of nature, which has its fantastic place. I'm no critic of that at all. But it's more like, in some ways, what you're alluding to there, as far as I experience it, this mysterious background to nature, where everyone on your podcast, I'm sure everyone you're connected with, to do with your Rewilding projects are huge, enormous fans of nature and realise the importance of it. But the thing that life has brought me to kind of investigate and put my focus on is this more hidden aspect of nature. And what I would say, it's very clear to me now, is that it's almost like the so-called outer expression of nature, what we can refer to as trees and, the countryside, the beautiful habitats that exist on this planet. They're only kind of set up. It's a bit of a kind of beautiful trap in a way. They're only set up to bring you finally to your inner nature, which is where that mystery in the ultimate peace, I just refer to it as the heart. I do apologize if it's a corny spiritual cliche, but it just becomes more and more relevant, every day in my life. It kind of dictates my experience of life. There's an outer nature which pulls you in, the beauty of the natural world, that almost inexpressible beauty of the natural world is only manifest in some way to bring you to your inner beauty. That's it for me.
So my brother-in-law, Imran Khan, who God bless him, it's his birthday today, and he's languishing in a jail in Pakistan, having been prime minister, and all prime ministers of Pakistan seem to end up in jail. But he's a thoroughly and fundamentally good man, and a hugely important influence on me in my life as a teenager. Didn't have a father around, and he is a devout Muslim, and he would describe nature as being a kind of mirror that reflects the within, in some way, or reflects kind of the divine within. So I'm interested particularly to talk about your cows, because I think the expression biophilia that was coined by that writer E.O. Wilson, brilliant writer E.O. Wilson, to describe the innate love that all human beings feel for the non-human world, I think is most commonly expressed through connection with animals. People love their dogs, even if they don't know that they are biophilic beings, that they have a love of nature, even if they don't know that, even if they don't spend much time in nature, they love their dogs or their cats. And I wonder if you can explain for me, why were the cows, these tricky, difficult to approach castor cows with whom you spend all your time, why were they so important in your healing journey?
Yeah, so what happened, as I said, when I came to kind of be with cows again, it really is it's the perfect title for the project, Being with Cows, because it simply is all about the being aspect. So when I came back to be with cows, as I say, 10, 15 years ago, my own personal journey had took me on such a wide circular route back around to being with them that I really wasn't the same person at all that I was when I first was with cows when I was a kid on the family farm. So my awareness, particularly my spiritual awareness of what cows can represent, was already deeply heightened and expanded, maybe in some way, if I can use that phrase. So when I met them, I was in a different position, and immediately, even before the difficult circumstances with Corky came along, I was already experiencing them in a very deeply calming kind of, I came to see them as kind of anchors in some way. So they were kind of anchoring me into a deep stability that I simply hadn't found in other areas of my life in my search, to find out basically who am I is the most important question. Who am I beneath all of my personality, all of my thoughts, my restless thoughts, my ceaseless thoughts every moment of the day? Who is the true absolute heart of all of that? So this is what they immediately kind of stimulated inside me. And then with the circumstances surrounding Cork, of course, the intensity of that grief, which you've already mentioned with your own daughter. This was spontaneously. There was no intention. There was no thought going on with all of this. I simply got pushed into such a deep, deep need to find support from something that was non-human. So I had this beautiful natural landscape around me, but the cows seemed to be kind of like an interface between that beautiful landscape and my need for deep stability and support.
So please subscribe and tap the notifications bell so you don't miss new content. And to listen to the full podcast episodes, please search for Rewilding the World on whatever app you use to get your podcasts.